Making good on his promise to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. More than half of its staff is set to be fired, raising questions about how and if the agencies will continue to operate. The mass layoffs will impact nearly 2,100 people who are set to be placed on leave as of March 21st. Now, Trump's education secretary has called the cutbacks a step toward, quote, restoring greatness, but the announcement has been met with outrage nationwide. We're going to talk more about this now with our international affairs editor, Kethevan Gorejestani, who joins me on set. Kethevan, first of all, to better understand what we're talking about, what exactly does the Department of Education do in the U.S.?
Well, look, unlike very centralized systems like the one we have here in France, where the government basically decides everything when it comes to education, from when you go on break, how long your vacation is, to what exactly you learn, which is the curriculum. In the United States, it's very different, and mostly what is decided by state and local government. So, for example, the federal government doesn't have a say really in curriculum. If you go to school in Texas versus in California, you're not necessarily going to be learning the same thing. They decide, state and local governments, what teachers to hire, how many of them, how much to pay them. They decide discipline policy. They also decide on different types of tests that they want to give their students. Now, 90% of public school funding is actually state and local government. So the federal government doesn't really get into play until you reach that 10%, which is not a lot, but is also still important. A huge part of the Department of Education's job is really to administer all sorts of financial aid, helping students at different stages of their curriculum and their programs. They also fund education research. These are things like figuring out where U.S. students stand compared to other countries. And finally, they also are very key in ensuring and enforcing anti-discrimination laws. And that stems from when the department was created, because it's actually pretty recent. It was created by Jimmy Carter back in 1979. And at the time, the main mission of the Department of Education was not to tell you what you should learn, but it was to make sure that there was equal education opportunity for all U.S. Students, no matter their gender, their religion, their race, and also their income.
So what's the ultimate goal here? Is this just part of Trump's broader idea to cut waste from the federal government with the chainsaw, if need be?
Look, it's a little bit of both. Donald Trump has been very clear about what he thinks about the Department of Education. He has said that his ultimate goal is to get rid of the department completely. He said that his Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, would put herself out of a job. That was her job, to put herself out of a job. The press release on the staffing cuts that you talked about called this the Department of Education's final mission. So this is sort of the first step in dismantling the Department of Education. Part of it is this streamlining of government, cutting staffing, cutting funding. But given some of the numbers, it looks like it's not just this, because if you look at the numbers, first of all, there are about 4,000 employees at the Department of Education. That's probably the smallest staff of any cabinet agency, and the budget is about $275 billion for fiscal year 2025. That's about 4% of federal spending, and it's dwarfed by the likes of Health and Human Services, Defense, Treasury. So it's a smaller agency. So a lot of it has also to do with ideology. It's not new for Republicans to try to get rid of the Department of Education. Reagan tried to do it in the 80s. Donald Trump, in his first term, also targeted the Department of Education, but this time he's going really full force on it. One part of that ideology is battling what he calls woke ideology, using some of the department's tools while it's still existing to sort of turn the table. So I was talking about how to enforce civil rights law and make sure that schools follow those laws. They're using this, but the other way around. Instead of making sure that there is diversity, that there is equality, they're focusing on, for example, what they see as DEI or sort of gender-neutral attempts or programs. That's what they're targeting. The other part of that is to really focus on parental rights and on school choice. This is something that has really blown up in the United States, especially during COVID. And so this is a focus. You dismantle the federal agency and you give back the power to the state, the local, and even the individual people. Now, Congress technically has the control of being able to dismantle a governmental agency, but you can, what Donald Trump is doing, you can slowly dismantle it, slowly break it apart. You can take some of its elements and give them to other agencies. For example, civil rights enforcement, you give it to the Department of Justice. Financial aid and loans, you give it to Treasury. Oversight for sort of the students with disabilities, you can give it to the Health and Human Services. So the most impacted people and students will likely be those that come from low-income families, which were the ultimate beneficiaries of the funding from the Department of Education. And those low-income families overwhelmingly still today in the United States come from minority communities. And one final thought on this situation is that we talked a lot about Project 2025 during the campaign. Donald Trump tried to stay clear from it, saying he didn't know anything about it. Project 2025, the conservative blueprint on the question of education, clearly states eliminating the Department of Education over the next 10 years to give back control to the parents, to the local governments, and to the state governments, and taking all the funds from the federal government, giving it to the states, and saying, we're not giving you any regulations or any rules. You do whatever you want with it.
Kethevan, thanks for that look at the Department of Education that's about to lose already half of its staff.